be plenty of time to discuss your objections when and if you return.
Hi everyone, I'm Luke Hector and you're watching The Broken Meeple. This is a YouTube channel about board games where I give reviews, top 10s and my honest opinions, regardless of the consequences. We'll get on with the show in just a minute, but first a quick word from my sponsor. As a fellow gamer, you'll understand this is unacceptable. The solution? Head down to my new sponsor, Kiender.co.uk. Kiender stocks many of the hot new releases as well as some old hidden gems. Free delivery on orders over £30, further discounts on bulk purchases, and even 5% of your spending refunded back to you as points to be used for further discounts down the line. If you use the referral link in the description below and sign up for a new account, you'll get 5% discount on your first order over £60. So let's make gaps in your collection a thing of the past. Get down to Kiender and start saving today. Thank you for listening and enjoy the rest of the video.
Get on with it.
Today I'm taking a look at Forest Shuffle. I was very keen to get this one from Essen for my top 10 and everybody on the planet wanted me to get this game. I've never received so many comments for anything I've done before saying, get this game, I love this game, get this game. So many people are fans of Forest Shuffle, usually because of, not because of Essen, but because of Board Game Arena. Board Game Arena has had this on its website for a while. I have chosen deliberately not to play it until I got this game and tried it out proper, although I have also now played the mod on BGA. I will comment on that later, but you know, God, the amount of fans for this game was insane. So, okay, fine, I was anticipating it. I mean, Lookout Games do some pretty solid card games. It looked beautiful, nice cover, great nature artwork, and you know me, I'm a sucker for these nature artwork themed games, regardless of whether the theme's there or not. I just like the look of them. So, wasn't the most expensive thing in the world, only about €25, I think, 30 tops. I think it was only 25 actually, so not a bad price overall. And I figured, right, come on, please don't disappoint. Please don't disappoint. What you see here is what you get. This is essentially Forest Shuffle. It is a card game where you're essentially trying to amass the most points by combo building. You have a clearing board in the middle of the table and you have a deck of cards which is set based on player count with 3 winter cards shuffled into the bottom third in a prescribed manner, which means that when the third winter card comes up, game ends. So you're actually on a random timer. What players do each round is very simple. They draw 2 cards, either from the deck or from face-up cards in the clearing as the game goes on, and what they'll do effectively is utilize the cards that they collect to score points in a lot of different ways. There's all sorts of different types of animals in here. You've got deers, you've got bugs, you've got wild boars, you've got the different trees, you've got wolves, you've got butterflies, you've got different plants, you've got rabbits, you've got toads, birds, squirrels, salamanders, strawberries, gnats, you know, red squirrels, bats. You name it, there's something like that in here. I mean, I'm just glad they didn't put spiders in here, unlike most other nature games. But the idea is that you draw these cards and then you play them on the trees themselves. So you have to first play a tree, and then on that tree, these cards have essentially got dual use. So some of them have got top and the bottom, and some of them have got a left and a right, and when you play the cards you have to play them on a tree, and it's effectively got 4 spots. So I could play the butterfly on top of the tree, I could play the wolf on the right hand side of the tree, I could play a fox on the left, or I could play the moss underneath. And so each tree can hold 4 things, up to you how many trees you get, but there's lots of different trees as well, and the game just proceeds in that manner, drawing cards and playing cards in order to amass a ton of points by the end of the game, but with the slight twist that the deck of cards effectively is everything in the game. Not only is it what you need in order to play, but it's also the currency for actually playing anything. And any time that you pay a card for currency, it goes face up in the middle, which means that other opponents can then draw from there. So it's a case of, well, which cards do I allow my opponents to grab in the center? Some of them have even got bonuses. They have color symbols at the top of the card, and if you use these in order to pay the cost, you might get some other bonus when you play the card. That's pretty much all the rules. You carry on until the third winter is done and then score up. More on that later, but we'll get to that point. But of course, once you figure out who's got the most points, guess what they are?
Of course!
Combo building card games are a dime a dozen. It's tricky to really pinpoint one out, although one that does come to mind is something like San Juan, which is another game where the deck of cards is kind of everything. Now in San Juan, it's resources, it's buildings, it's currency, and the whole deck of cards is that thing. Here, it's not quite as expansive as that, but still the deck of cards is not only the creatures that you're playing, or the trees that you're growing, it's also the currency to play the cards. But I do like the unique twist here that the cards come out on show for other players. So if you are going to play something pretty big, you're giving away more cards. I guess little card games like Abyss Conspiracy did that, where you wanted to get more choice, and by doing so you give the opponents more choice. Well, I want to play a pretty good animal, I want to play a wolf, it costs me 3 cards though, I gotta put 3 cards face up in the clearing, and the opponents might be like, ooh, oh, I wanted the raccoon, yeah, I'll take that one. So you gotta be very careful. But yeah, honestly, pick most combo building card games that you're aware of, and this is kind of similar to them. It's not the most unique game in the world, but hey, doesn't always have to be perfectly unique as long as it's good. Firstly, the artwork is beautiful, as I said. You've got this nice clearing board in the middle, and all these cards have got very beautiful pictures of the different creatures on here. The trees particularly look sublime. I mean, we're not talking Canopy levels. I think Canopy is still like the gold poster child of this sort of thing. But this artwork is still really, really nice, and it looks nice on the table when you've got all this stuff laid out. Although you will have a lot laid out, more on that later. But component-wise, the cards are decent enough quality. They're a little bit on the finished side, but basically this one has gone out of its way to say it's a green game, so it's, not using a lot of plastic. But if you don't want these cards to get damaged by the fact that you're using them for everything and the fact that you're having to slide them underneath cards all the time, you're probably going to want to sleeve these anyway, which means you're going to be using plastic, which then kind of goes against the whole point of this being green.
Recycle those plastics, or else I'll turn you into a f***ing tree.
The combo building aspect of this game is really the whole meat of it, and it is really good fun. It is great to get a few cards in your hand and decide, well, I could play that for the badger, but then I could play it for the hare. That scores one way, that scores another. Do I have the points in order, the cards in order to get the bonus? Well, if I draw those from the center, I will. Is it worth taking time out for that? Well, I know, another tree's popped out. I could grab another horse chestnut tree. Well, I've got one already. I've got 2 down here. Now, that's a lot of points. Do I draw from here? But then, oh, wait a minute. If I play this tree, I need to spend 2 cards. But then, which cards do I get rid of? That whole choice of, if I want to play something, I then have to get rid of other cards. It works brilliantly in any game that uses that mechanic, and here, no exception, it's a great one as well. I'm constantly having to have very angsty decisions about what I play, when I play, what I use to play it, and what combos I'm going for. And it can be very satisfying to get the perfect combo that you were going for, whether it was a bunch of trees, or whether you were trying to get a ton of the rabbits, or a bunch of the deer, or your 5th butterfly, that kind of thing. That aspect is still great fun. Rules-wise, I'll touch a little bit on this in the bad section as well, but from a good standpoint, it is a pretty smooth game to play. I mean, the rules you need to know for your turn sequence is draw 2 cards or play a card. That's pretty much it. And when playing a card, you discard other cards, and you might get a bonus if you discard the right symbol. Well, that's pretty much it. I mean, that is it from a rules perspective. Keep going until you get the 3rd winter card. And again, I love that timer mechanic. Spike has it. A couple of other games, I can't recall their titles, but other games have got this where, I think Ethnos had it as well. I love this thing where you get warned that the game is going to end soon, and as soon as it happens, it's almost a bit like hearing the sudden death music in a Mario game or so, where it's like and then suddenly it all speeds up and you're like, quick, get going. It's like that with this. As soon as that winter card comes out, you hear the music and then you better get going, so it's like, oh damn, I need to play that and get this down, give me another deer quick, and 3rd winter. And it's just, it works so well. Love it, love it, love it.
I don't want to die, Mike.
Now, of course, a big card game that relies on a lot of cards. Luck is going to be a big factor, and certainly it's present here. The problem that Everdell has, where you're constantly having to search for very specific cards, is present here with some of these combos. Some of these combos are pretty straightforward to get a lot of, or different ones off. The trees in particular, there's plenty of them in the deck, you'll find them. But then certain other ones where, you know, the wild boars, they score a lot if you can get a squeaker, a little baby boar. Well, then you're having to go through the deck and hope a squeaker comes out. The deers in particular, you know, like, you know, a lynx or something says, oh, I get 10 points if a roe deer comes out. Well, wait till a roe deer appears somewhere, but I'm not going to see it. You want to go for 5 butterflies? Well, you need 5 different butterflies, and you're constantly trying to find that 5th butterfly. And that's all based on luck. There is no skill involved in getting the end of your bonus. Really, it's just, did it appear and did no one else nick it? That's kind of a big deal, and certainly you're just going to have to accept that, you know, despite what skill you might show during the game, luck can still screw you over.
Wait, my cheating unit malfunctioned.
The graphic design is also a little bit on the squinty side. These aren't the largest cards in the world, and I feel like maybe they should have been a little bit bigger. But you gotta look for some really tiny icons on here. I mean, the type of creature it is a tiny little square. The type of cost is, you know, reasonably well, it sticks out. But the main thing I have problems with is the icon that tells you, like, whether it gives you a discount on other cards. There's a lot of different types of leaves that they use. They use different color leaves, and the design of the leaves is pretty similar to each other, but what's worse and kind of unforgivable is the similarity of the colours. The colours are insane. I mean, a red and a yellow will stick out like a sore thumb, fine. You know, a green and a blue will probably stick out fairly well. But there's 2 different types of green, a dark green and a slightly lighter green.
A nugget of purest green.
There is a blue and a slightly grayer blue. You know, there's an orange and then there's a slightly light brown. I've repeatedly looked at cards and mistaken them for each other because the symbols are just too small and too similar on the colours. If you are colorblind, I don't recommend you play this game because yes, the leaf designs are similar, but you're just going to go absolutely nuts trying to look really tightly at these cards to see the different leaf designs, and it really isn't best suited on that front. The game says 2 to 5 players, 60 minutes. That 60 minutes is mostly accurate. It can drag on a bit beyond that with a lot of players if there's slow people around, but the problem that the player scaling has is that this game always does feel like it drags on a bit too much. Like, it's not the longest game ever, but every game I play of this, I think it's outstaying its welcome. If I play this with 4 or 5 players, you've got to wait for multiple other players to take their turn, and there's only so much you can plan for, particularly as the clearing is going to be pretty chaotic with cards being drawn and played and drawn and played. So there's only so much you can plan ahead for. And with 4 or 5 players, especially if you get anybody who's kind of slow, you're going to be sat there for a while, and you don't get that many, you don't get that many chances to act. In fact, you have less turns than in a normal game because, yes, you scale this deck based on number of players, but another 10 cards in or out of the deck doesn't make up for the fact that 4 other players have got to do something before you do. So, you have that problem with high player counts. But then if you switch it up to 2 or 3 player, especially 2 player, yes, you get a lot more turns, but again, I just feel like when I get to the winter cards, or maybe even just before I get to the winter cards, you've got so much stuff out here. You've got like tree, boar, butterfly, bowl, beer, bed, whatever, bat, marmoset, all this stuff out in front of you. Way too many things to score, more on that later, but you still haven't seen the first winter card. Or you might have seen the first winter card and you're waiting for the second and third one to turn up. And especially if it happens to be on the very bottom of the deck, that gets annoying because by the time the third winter card comes up, you feel like the game should have ended a good few, like 10, 15 minutes ago.
Well, we're waiting.
But let's get to the big Achilles heel with this game. And when I say Achilles heel, wow, it's as if Achilles has a heel with a giant target on it. And everything that you shoot at it is basically like a homing missile. This is a potential killer for this game, and it really does kill a lot of it. The scoring. And I mean this in 2 aspects. Firstly, the scoring for this game is an absolute chore. A massive chore. You have got 14 of these reference cards that tell you what all the different creatures score like, okay? Not much point needing them. The graphic design, for what each animal scores is pretty straightforward on here. But oh my word, do you have a lot to score by the end of the game. Not so much in 4 or 5 players, it's mitigated a bit in that, but then of course you've got the problem with not taking many turns in the game, dragging on endlessly. But in a 2-player game especially, 3-player as well, you have so much stuff in front of you that trying to score it is problematic. And the pad, you know, I'll just leave that box there for a minute, is not exactly useful on that front because, you know, you've got trees and then you've got to do the top and the bottom on a single line and you've got to do the left and the right on a single line. No. You need to have a score pad with every type of animal on it, ideally, or at the very minimum, left, right, top, bottom as individual lines. Combining them, though, means that you're writing a bucket load of numbers on here trying to do the maths. And the maths gets ridiculous. You know, you have got to think, right, how many, you know, I've got 5 butterflies, so that means that's worth 20, okay, fine, but then I've got 2 other butterflies on top, so that's only worth 3, okay, so 23, okay, right, I've got deers, right, that gives me 3 points for every green leaf symbol on my cards. How many of those have I got? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that's 18, right, fine. I've got 4 horse chestnut trees, that's 16, but then I've also got all 8 species on my tree in my thing, so that's 10 points for those strawberries, but then I've also got, have I got 4 beeches in my thing? Yes, I have. So each of those are worth 5. Linden tree. Oh, you've got more linden trees than me. Okay, so they're only worth 1 point apiece. The wolves, 5 points per deer. Right, how many deer have I got? 3, 4, hang on, 20, 23, carried a 1.
Oh no, I've gone cross-eyed.
I'm an accountant, I'm a tax accountant, and scoring for this feels like a chore. And before you get on my case saying, well, what about Earth? Earth has a lot of scoring. Earth's scoring is long-winded. Yes, I agree, it's a long-winded, it's a flaw of the game. But it's also a lot more structured and a lot more easier to deal with. You know, what do I have to deal with first? Count the points on the cards. Done. Right, okay. Now, how many cards in your compost? Done. Right, how many cubes have you got? Done. Right, how many like tree segments have you got? Done. You know, they're individual lines, they're structured, and they're easy to count. The hardest thing in Earth to score is the terrain cards. Get past that bit though, and everything else is pretty straightforward. Here though, nothing is easy to score. There are all sorts of different interlinking things that give you points, or like deny points, or whatever. Trying to visualize it in a smorgasbord of messy cards with no real structure to them is just, it's painful. It takes probably about half the length of the game to score as the game is. And this is where BGA comes in, because Board Game Arena takes that element away from you and has you visualizing the score at the same time. If you are on BGA, you don't have to spend 20 minutes scoring the end of the game, and you know what scores each player is on because it tells you on screen.
And I'm the bad guy?
But it's not just the scoring itself. The balance. The balance in this game is almost at a point that I want to call it broken. Now, that's a strong word to use, so we'll avoid using that. But there's some consensus online about this, and there are some clear things in here that work a lot better than others. The trees and deer with the wolves, those 3 in particular, especially trees, are easily so far the most powerful thing to do in the game for points. If you do deer and wolves and you get the points off these, you're gonna win. If you get a bunch of trees, you get 8 species, you get the horse chestnuts or whatever, and all the other cards that seem to stem off how many trees you've got, you're gonna win. It's just a very easy strategy to pull off, but it's also a very lucrative one. But then there's stuff in here that I will just never play again, like ever. Butterflies. You get 20 points if you get all 5 butterflies. You've got to find 5 different butterflies in the entire deck during a game, play them all on 5 different trees, and all you get is 20 points. You have a tree called the sycamore tree that literally gives you a point per tree. And all you've got to do is just play a bunch of trees, which you do anyway, and if you get multiple sycamores, this thing just escalates and compounds. But there's a lot of things in here that just don't feel right. I mean, a bat. It's worth 5 points if there's at least 3 different bats. So again, I've got to find 3 different bats. Or I could simply just play a deer that gives me 3 points for every green symbol, which I've probably got loads of without even realizing it. Birds, 3 points for every bird. Fine, okay, easy. But then you get some other thing that gives you, 0, 10, 15, and 20 if you can find 1, 2, 3, or 4 fireflies, which are pretty rare in the deck. There's just a lot of occasions here where you look at the points for a card and you can just tell at a 5-second glance it's not worth playing it compared to these others, which is why if you go online you will see threads about trees and deer / wolves being the most powerful strategies, and I think they always are. If anybody in any of the games I've played does one of those 2 strategies and makes it work, it wins. with hands down. You can't do any other strategy in this game and beat it. It just hasn't happened. Now, you're getting a variety of things. You're not just getting those animals. You're going to have to play other things as well, but there's a good, 3 or 4 different things in this game, like, species-wise, that I'm just never going to touch. And that's removing, past the victory. It's making some cards almost dead draws. I mean, I don't really care about butterflies. I don't really care about bats. I don't really care about half the plants unless I'm going for a lot of trees and they work with them. The boars, not really worth it. You've got a cave. You've got a cave where you can put cards into your cave and they become a point each. But it requires you to have a lot of cards in the clearing with the bear, or a lot of cards in your hand for the raccoon, and you might get 5 or 6 maybe from it, but then you lose all the cards in your hand, which is never a great thing. But then it just doesn't feel that lucrative. I get 5 points per gnat. Yeah, but this thing gives me 3 points per bird. The birds are much more common in your gnats. Anything with a multiplier is infinitely better to get, and it just really makes the balance of this game a bit off kilter. So for a shuffle, I am seeing a lot of people give this praise, saying it's like their best game of the year, like it's their favourite card game and all that stuff, and loads of people in comments have said that I really love Forest Shuffle, and there are a few that don't, but the majority are saying, oh, I love this game. But here's the thing. A lot of those people have played this on Board Game Arena. I'm not rating this based on Board Game Arena. I'm rating it based on the card game physical copy that I have in front of me. So Board Game Arena doesn't give it extra brownie points, alright? But also, I think a lot of people, a lot of channels are just ignoring the scoring part. They sort of gloss over and go, oh yeah, it takes a while to score. And that's it. They don't say the fact that it takes an eternity to score. They don't mention anything about the player scaling issue. They mention nothing about the fact that some of these paths to victory are definitely more powerful than others. They just kind of omit this. And I can't overlook this. So I have a card game here that looks amazing. I love it on the table and it has some very satisfying combo building. But the thing is that I'm going to want to build the same combo every game because I know it's the most powerful, and I'm not going to want to play this that often because I know that when I get to the scoring phase, I'm going to have to go through a massive maths lesson to get it all done for 15 minutes. And with 5 players, especially if you've got a couple of people who aren't very good at counting, oh my word, it is, painful, because I can score my own thing, but then if I've got to go and score your lot as well, I basically will jump out the window.
And exactly how many times did he fall out the window?
And with no solo mode either, I can't even play this by myself, which would eliminate some of that player problem, but there's no AI or anything to play against, so I have to play this with other players. Do I play it with more and have less turns and a long drawn-out game, or do I play it with 2 and have some dominant strategies while also still outstaying its welcome? There's no real sweet spot. Maybe 3-player is the absolute sweet spot, but when you're scaling from 2 to 5, I don't expect to have to hunt down only 3 players for this game, or go online because I don't want to play the physical card game version. I'm giving it overall a 6 out of 10. 6 out of 10 is above average and still decent. There's a lot of stuff in here that does do well. The look, the card play, the giving stuff to your opponents, the combo building is all really good fun. But the player scaling is all over the shop. The scoring is an absolute chore, which I'm gonna have to suffer through every game. And the whole balance of these cards, I feel just should have been spotted in game development. I can't see how people played this and thought that all of these different creatures were balanced. No way! And a lot of channels are omitting this information when they talk about this game, and I think that's a disservice to the consumer. I'm gonna tell it how it is, and despite a lot of good stuff about this game, those problems are big problems. This could have easily been a 9, possibly a 10 out of 10 card game potentially, with the good stuff that was going for it, if they just got everything else right. Unfortunately, their big nuts drops it down to a 6. If you're playing this on Board Game Arena though, I think this actually climbs to a 7. At least a 7, and could be recommended, but I feel like I don't want to have this card game version anymore. I'll just play it on BGA, and that's not good when you're trying to recommend it to people to buy. So that's it for me on this episode of The Broken Meeple. If you like what you see, then please thumb it up on YouTube and thumb it up on Board Game Geek when it goes live on the site. Don't forget to check out all the other SM reviews I'm doing. Let me know your comments down below, but please be civil, because I know I've just angered a ton of you by saying that this game is flawed and has issues and isn't even getting a seal of endorsement from me. But hey, can you deny the flaws I've said? You probably will. But as I say, let's hear your thoughts in the comments and let me know, because I know there's some people who don't like this game. I know there's fans of it everywhere. It's going to be interesting to see what happens when this goes live. So take care, and remember, regardless of how arduous you want your scoring phases to be, it's still only a game. Here goes nothing. Bye for now.